There is the stereotype that Asian school children are extremely nerdy, hardworking, and always top of the class. I don't know if this is always true, but I think it's come about because there is such a strong cultural expectation of Chinese children to be successful and to do well at school. But what you've got to understand is that our parents have sacrificed so much to come to New Zealand that there's pressure to do well because of the things I've given up. Like my mother gave up the most amazing singing career so that I could come to school in New Zealand.
The ambitions of those first migrants is that their children and their children's children will not have to work quite as hard and certainly not in the same kind of labouring occupations.
This is something which has been in Chinese society for thousands of years, that a peasant boy, in theory, could become a minister through study.
If I leave your land, the land would be taken away from you. If I leave your house, it would be taken away from you. All right? There's no good to give you anything except education. Education is something that no one can take it away from you.
But, you know, sometimes the Chinese virtues are almost held against them. You know, they're too excellent, you know, academically excellent. I mean, oh, they're taking all the prizes, you know, and we can't get into medical school because the Chinese have taken all the spots.
I don't think we're necessarily any more intelligent than anybody else. It's just that we put in the hard yards because that was what was expected of us.
Sometimes it clashed with my Kiwi friends who probably had parents that were a lot more relaxed and were able to play more and hang out more, and I always had to study a lot more. But I'm kind of grateful for it, to be honest.
One thing that hot housing your children does achieve, making your children really geeky, what it does achieve is means that they actually don't actually have to worry about them because they're too geeky to get into any trouble. You know, when I was 14, you know, I would have been like quite happy to be going out and drinking and taking drugs and having sex. But I didn't know any boys to do that with.
Yeah, exactly.
I wasn't cool enough to meet anything.
Yeah.
She was Dux. She was Dux in sixth form as well, and I wasn't. I would have been Proxima Assessor. Runner-up.
Proxima Assessor is like, it's bad.
Oh, yeah, runner-up. Yeah, but I whole art
No,
subject.
my mother picked my subject. She didn't allow me to do English. I really wanted to do English.
What?
Sitting for just a minute to eat our toast.
Chinese parents have done a pretty good job of putting career advisors out of work. The options pretty much were law, medicine, engineering, architecture, or accountancy. Now, our parents want us to do these professional degrees because it means economic independence. My parents wanted me to be a lawyer. But I think increasingly there's this recognition that you can actually make a living doing other things. And in New Zealand, all the time, more and more, there are Chinese writers, poets, musicians, and artists. I'm a natural with kids.
I chose to do fine arts. I chose to work in an area that you make the least money from. And I can understand why my grandparents, my gungung and pawpaw, would have been horrified by this. That they would want their best for their children and their grandchildren. They would want to see their mokopuna making money and being able to survive okay.
The highlight of my life will probably be on 19th of March 1997 when I made my maiden speech in the New Zealand Parliament as the first member from Asian ethnic origin.
Growing up, it wasn't cool to be Chinese. There were no role models on TV, no role models in magazines, so I desperately wanted to be European.
I only started feeling good about being Chinese when I started my fashion course, really, just because it was good to be different. It wasn't because I was ashamed of being Chinese, I just wanted to fit in. So I went overseas, I went to Hong Kong, found a job straight away and thought, great, I'll just blend in, and they all thought I was Japanese. I just miss space, the fresh air, the blue sky, the greenery, the mountains, and I was home in 6 months. At that stage I thought, oh, it's all right, you know. I'm just myself. I'm a New Zealander, I'm a New Zealand Chinese, and I feel happy with it now.
Sharon's designs use classic Chinese contours with colours from the local landscape and textile art drawn directly from New Zealand paintings. She's commissioned Kiwi artists such as Bill Hammond, Philip Truston, and Ralph Hotere to paint designs for her fabrics.
My influences are from here, but from my childhood, you can see the Chinese influences.
Maori Chinese artist Simon Kahn has had to wrestle with the influences of his dual heritage too.
That whole thing of not quite belonging, but then belonging to both as well. And yeah, it's quite liberating when you can sort that out. I wouldn't fit in totally with my Chinese rallies often, and I wouldn't fit in with my Māori rallies often. The work itself is sort of that in-between space, is in many ways the space between. Growing up, there was sort of Chinese artworks around the house, you know, the vases and jade rock constructions I just thought about the other day that were really hideous now, but that's what I viewed as what art was, I suppose, in many ways when I was younger. And when I was going through art school, I thought I was bad at art, you know, and it wasn't until I was in my 20s till it really started to click that I did have a different aesthetic knowledge that I was brought up with. And it's just now that I can acknowledge that and start rolling with that.